The tablet shattered against marble. Victor Halrick stood at the head of the obsidian table on the 49th floor of Sterling Meridian Tower, veins bulging in his neck, face the color of old wine. 12 executives froze like deer caught in headlights. Through floor-to-ceiling glass behind them, all of Midtown Manhattan stretched out like a kingdom Victor owned. He didn't own it anymore. $30,000, Victor said, voice dripping with venom. He tapped his Patek Philippe watch. My salary. For one day. To anyone who can translate this. He thrust a new tablet toward the suits surrounding him. Dense foreign characters glowed on the screen. Legal gibberish from Shenzhen that looked like ancient hieroglyphics to everyone in that room. The executives shifted in their Italian leather chairs. A few cleared throats. One checked his phone like it held answers. No one moved. Victor's laugh cut through the silence like broken glass. Hi friend, before we continue the story, kindly tell us where are you watching from. And hit that subscribe button now for you to get more, and I have something new for you tomorrow. Stay tuned. Thanks. Let's continue. His eyes swept past the venture capitalists from Boston, the hedge fund managers from Miami, the tech bros from San Francisco. Then his gaze landed on the corner. On her. The maid. Gray uniform. Yellow cleaning cloth hanging from her pocket. Dark circles under her eyes that told stories about 3-hour sleep schedules and graveyard shifts. A cleaning cart beside her loaded with industrial spray bottles and cheap paper towels. She'd been standing there for 20 minutes. Invisible. Even the maid can try, Victor said. Laughter erupted around the table like a dam breaking. The VP from Dallas slapped his knee. A woman from Seattle covered her mouth but her shoulders shook. Someone near the door actually snorted. Lucera Vale's fingers tightened around the cloth in her pocket. $30,000. 3 months' rent in Queens. Her mother's dialysis bills. The immigration lawyer who kept pushing back her visa renewal. Her entire crumbling life wrapped up in numbers she'd never touch. Victor knew exactly what he was dangling. What he didn't know was what Lucera carried in her other pocket. Or who taught her to read languages that powerful men tried to hide. Lucera stepped forward. The laughter died like someone cut the sound. What happens when the invisible becomes undeniable? 3 days earlier, yellow paper fluttered on Lucera's apartment door in Queens like a death sentence. Final eviction notice. Red letters. Bold font. The kind of document that didn't care about excuses or hardship or mothers hooked to dialysis machines in cramped bedrooms that smelled like disinfectant and defeat. Lucera stood in the hallway holding grocery bags that felt heavier than concrete. Milk. Eggs. Bread. $23 that should have stretched a week but wouldn't make it past Thursday. Inside, her mother slept in the only bedroom. Medical equipment beeped steady rhythms through paper-thin walls. The machines cost more per month than Lucera made cleaning 49 floors of Sterling Meridian Tower. She peeled the notice off the door. 72 hours. That's all the time she had left before marshals showed up with clipboards and cold eyes and legal authority to dump everything she owned onto the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed. A text from the lawyer handling her visa paperwork. Hearing delayed again. Need another $2,000 retainer or we withdraw representation. Lucera's hands shook. She wasn't just poor. She was running out of time in a country that had no space for people who stumbled. One missed payment. One expired document. One bureaucrat having a bad day. And she'd disappear. Back to nothing. Back to nowhere. Back to watching her mother die slowly because American healthcare didn't cover people who fell through cracks designed to swallow them whole. Victor Halricks held the power to change everything. He just didn't know it yet. Lucera touched the jade pen in her coat pocket. Cool metal against her palm. A gift from her father before everything went wrong. Before powerful men decided his genius was a threat instead of an asset. Before he died under circumstances no one wanted to investigate. The pen felt like a promise. Or a curse. She walked into her apartment, set down the groceries, and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles. Gray uniform crumpled on the floor. Cheap shoes with holes in the soles. Tomorrow she'd go back to Sterling Meridian. Tomorrow she'd be invisible again. Unless she chose not to be. Will desperation make you brave or reckless? Lucera's father wasn't a janitor. Dakari Vale was one of the most brilliant cryptolinguists the world forgot existed. Governments hired him to decode languages layered with secrets. Corporations paid him to translate documents designed to hide fraud behind foreign syntax. He could read what people meant, not just what they wrote. That skill destroyed him. Lucera was 16 when federal agents showed up at their apartment in Washington, D.C. They wore dark suits and asked questions about shell companies and offshore accounts. Her father sat at the kitchen table, calm as stone, and told them the truth. He translated a series of documents that exposed a massive corporate fraud scheme. Billions moved through fake entities registered in Panama, Singapore, Nevada. American executives getting rich while investors lost everything. The agents wrote notes. Nodded. Thanked him. 2 weeks later, Dakari Vale was dead. Car accident, the police said. Brake failure on a rainy night near the Potomac. Tragic. Unfortunate. Case closed. But before he died, he gave Lucera the jade pen. One day powerful men will try to hide behind words, he whispered. His hands trembled as he pressed the pen into her palm. This will let you see what they mean. The pen wasn't magic. It was technology. A prototype he designed that could decode layered corporate dialects buried inside foreign legal documents. It scanned syntax patterns, cross-referenced databases, stripped away linguistic camouflage. It made lies visible. Never use it unless you have no choice, Dakari said. They killed me for knowing too much. Don't let them kill you. Lucera was 17 when she figured out who benefited most from her father's death. Victor Halricks. Back then, Victor was just a rising exec at a mid-tier acquisition firm in New York City. Hungry. Ruthless. Connected to people who made problems disappear. The fraud her father exposed. It collapsed a competitor's company. Opened a gap in the market. Let Victor's firm swoop in and consolidate power. Within 2 years, Victor built Sterling Meridian into a $40 billion empire. Built on bones her father left behind. Now, 8 years later, Lucera stood in Victor's boardroom holding the same kind of document that killed Dakari Vale. And Victor had no idea who she was. The executive stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Victor's smirk turned sharp. Dangerous. Well, he said. Translate it. Or admit you can't. Lucera pulled the tablet toward her. The foreign characters weren't simple Mandarin. They were layered. Legal language wrapped in financial code wrapped in cultural syntax. Designed to look legitimate while hiding something rotten underneath. She touched the jade pen in her pocket. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Don't let them kill you. But what if staying silent was already death? Can you translate truth when it costs everything? Lucera's voice cut through the boardroom like a scalpel through skin. This agreement does not describe a partnership. The executives leaned forward. Victor's smirk faltered. Just a flicker. Just enough. Lucera kept reading. Her finger traced the characters on the screen. The jade pen stayed hidden in her pocket, but her mind worked like her father's prototype, peeling back layers of meaning buried beneath corporate doublespeak. It describes a controlled liquidation of Sterling Meridian through offshore shell companies registered in Panama, Singapore, and Nevada. Silence dropped like a guillotine. The VP from Boston straightened in his chair. The hedge fund manager from Miami stopped scrolling his phone. A woman from Los Angeles whispered something to the man beside her. Victor laughed. Too loud. Too fast. She's guessing, he said. The document's in Mandarin. She's a maid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Lucera looked him dead in the eyes. It includes clauses for asset stripping, data transfer, and a delayed public bankruptcy filing time to maximize executive payouts while leaving investors with nothing. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. One executive, Derek Whale, stood abruptly. His chair scraped against marble. His face flushed red. That's impossible, Derek barked. She can't read that. Security, get her out of here. Two guards moved toward Lucera. But she tapped the screen again. There's a second layer. Victor's face drained of color. Lucera's father taught her that complex fraud always had multiple levels. The surface looked clean. Professional. But underneath? Instructions. Evidence. Proof. The jade pen didn't just translate words. It identified patterns. Linguistic markers that revealed hidden meanings embedded in syntax structure. And this document had all the markers. This layer reveals internal memos, Lucera continued. Her voice stayed steady even though her heart hammered against her ribs. Written by you, Mr. Howricks. Instructing these investors on how to seize this company while leaving you with legal immunity and $40 million in untraceable payments. The hedge fund manager from Miami stood. That's a serious accusation, he said slowly. Victor's jaw clenched. Muscles in his neck bulged. She's lying, he snapped. It's gibberish. She doesn't understand corporate language. She's trying to manipulate you. But the executives weren't looking at Victor anymore. They were looking at the screen. Lucera turned the tablet toward them. Her hands trembled but her grip stayed firm. Read it yourselves, she said. Or bring in your own translator. But I'm telling you the truth. This isn't a deal. It's theft. Derek lunged across the table. His hand shot toward the tablet. His face twisted with rage. He moved fast for a man in a $3,000 suit. But Lucera was faster. She tapped one button. The document mirrored to the room's main display. 20 feet of digital screen blazing with foreign characters that suddenly began rearranging themselves. Translating. Stripping away camouflage. And then everyone saw it. Emails. Shell account numbers. Transfer orders. Executive names. Victor Howricks's signature everywhere. What do you do when the truth becomes undeniable? Derek's hand froze 6 inches from the tablet. The boardroom erupted like someone tossed a grenade into the center of the table. Executives shouted over each other. Chairs scraped. Phones came out. The woman from Seattle stood so fast she knocked over her coffee. Dark liquid spread across white papers like blood at a crime scene. Victor's face turned to stone. This is fabricated, he said. His voice dropped low. Dangerous. Someone planted this. It's a setup. But the screen didn't lie. Line after line of evidence glowed in stark white text. Transfers from Sterling Meridian accounts to shell companies in Panama. Dates that matched board meetings. Amounts that matched budget discrepancies executives had been questioning for months. The VP from Dallas pointed at the screen. That's my signature, he said slowly. On documents I never saw. The hedge fund manager from Miami scrolled through his phone, cross-referencing numbers. These accounts, he muttered. They're linked to entities we flagged last quarter. Derek spun toward Lucera. His face twisted into something ugly. Who are you working for? He snarled. Which competitor paid you to sabotage this company? Lucera stepped back. Her spine hit the wall. The cleaning cart beside her rattled. Security guards moved closer. One reached for her arm. "Don't touch her," someone said. Everyone turned. The woman from Los Angeles stood. Serena Okafor. General Counsel. One of the few people in that room who'd worked her way up from nothing. "If she's lying, we sue her into oblivion," Serena said calmly. "But if she's telling the truth, we have bigger problems." Victor's eyes burned holes into Lucera. "She's a maid," he said slowly. Each word dropped like ice. "She cleans toilets. She doesn't understand corporate finance. She doesn't understand acquisition law. She's reading gibberish and spinning conspiracy theories." Lucera's hands shook. $30,000. Her mother's dialysis. Her visa. Her entire life balanced on whether these people believed her or buried her. She pulled the jade pen from her pocket. The room went quiet. "My father designed this," she said. Her voice cracked but held. Dakari Vale. Cryptolinguist. He worked for governments and corporations decoding documents designed to hide fraud. Victor's face changed. Just for a second. Recognition flickered behind his eyes. 20 years ago, he translated documents that exposed a massive scheme, Lucera continued. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Corporate theft disguised as legitimate business. The executives behind it destroyed his career. Then they killed him. Serena stepped closer. "Who killed him?" Lucera looked directly at Victor. "The people who benefited when that competitor's company collapsed. The people who built empires on the bones my father left behind." Victor's lips pulled into something that might have been a smile but looked more like a threat. "Careful," he whispered. "Accusations like that have consequences." "So does fraud," Lucera said. The screen behind them flickered. New text appeared. Not translations. Metadata. Digital fingerprints embedded in the document files showing when they were created, who authored them, what devices accessed them. Every file traced back to Victor's personal servers. Serena's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her expression hardened. "Federal investigators are in the lobby," she said quietly. Victor's face went pale. Someone had already called them. Before this meeting even started. Before Lucera translated anything. This wasn't an accident. This was a trap. And Victor had walked right into it. Derek bolted for the door. "They're already outside." Victor stood frozen at the head of the table. His empire crumbling around him in real time. His carefully constructed facade shattering like the tablet he'd thrown against marble. He looked at Lucera. "You have no idea what you've done," he said. Lucera met his gaze without flinching. "I know exactly what I've done," she said. "I finished what my father started." Sirens wailed outside. 49 floors below, federal agents streamed into Sterling Meridian Tower with warrants and handcuffs and authority that didn't care about billion-dollar net worths or corner offices overlooking Manhattan. The door burst open. How does it feel when the powerful finally fall? The agents wore dark suits and carried badges that glinted under boardroom lights like knives. Lead investigator Marcus Chen strode through the door first. FBI. Financial Crimes Division. Behind him came 3 more agents and 2 uniformed NYPD officers who looked like they'd been waiting months for this exact moment. Victor didn't move. His hands gripped the edge of the obsidian table so hard his knuckles turned white. "Victor Halrix," Marcus said. "No preamble. No warmth. You're under arrest for wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit corporate theft." The room exploded. Executives scrambled backward. Phones came out recording everything. The woman from Seattle actually gasped. Derek tried to slip toward the side exit but an officer blocked his path with one arm. "Him too," Marcus said, nodding toward Derek. "Derek Whale." Same charges. Derek's face went gray. Victor finally spoke. His voice came out steady. Controlled. Like a man who'd been preparing for this moment even while pretending it would never come. I want my lawyer, he said. You'll get one, Marcus replied. He pulled out handcuffs. Steel clicked against steel. After we process you downtown. An agent moved behind Victor. Pulled his arms back. Secured the cuffs with practiced efficiency that said he'd done this 1,000 times to men who thought they were untouchable. Lucera stood against the wall watching everything unfold like a movie she'd seen before. Her father's death. The investigations that went nowhere. The powerful men who walked away clean while her family drowned in debt and grief. Not this time. Marcus turned toward her. His expression softened just slightly. Ms. Vale, he said. We'll need your statement. She stays here, Serena interrupted. The general counsel stepped between Lucera and the agents. She's a material witness. She deserves legal representation before any questioning. Marcus nodded. Professional. Respectful. Understood. We'll coordinate through counsel. Victor twisted in the agent's grip. His eyes locked onto Lucera with hatred so pure it felt like heat radiation. You destroyed everything, he hissed. For what? $30,000. Revenge for a father who couldn't handle the pressure. Lucera's jaw tightened. My father handled pressure better than you ever could, she said quietly. He just couldn't survive men like you. Victor laughed. Bitter. Sharp. You think this ends well for you, he said. You're still a maid. Still broke. Still nobody. You just made enemies who'll bury you the second these cameras stop rolling. The agents pulled Victor toward the door. Derek followed in his own set of handcuffs, head down, shoulders slumped like a man who'd already accepted defeat. The boardroom emptied fast. Executives fled like rats abandoning a sinking ship. Within minutes only Lucera, Serena, and 2 junior associates remained. Serena sat down heavily in Victor's chair. Ran her hands through her hair. Exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. That document, she said. The translation. How did you know? Lucera pulled out the jade pen. Set it on the table. My father taught me, she said simply. Serena picked up the pen. Examined it. Her lawyer brain already calculating implications and evidence chains and testimonies that would need corroboration. This pen, Serena said slowly. It's proof of methodology. Chain of custody. We'll need experts to verify its functionality. It works, Lucera said. That's all that matters. No, Serena met her eyes. What matters is whether 12 jurors believe it works. Whether a judge allows it as evidence. Whether Victor's defense team can discredit it. Lucera's stomach dropped. She'd exposed the fraud. Brought down a billionaire. Vindicated her father's memory. But the fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Outside the boardroom windows, news helicopters circled Sterling Meridian Tower like vultures. Camera crews set up on the street below. Reporters shouted questions at agents escorting Victor and Derek into unmarked vehicles. Serena's phone buzzed non-stop. Text after text. Call after call. The board wants an emergency meeting, she said. Investors are panicking. Stock price is crashing. We're looking at lawsuits from every direction. She looked at Lucera. They're going to offer you money, Serena said. A lot of money. To stay quiet. To sign NDAs. To disappear. Lucera's hands trembled. How much money? Enough to solve every problem you have, Serena said. And create a dozen new ones. What's the price of justice when survival is on the line? The conference room on the 47th floor felt smaller than the boardroom upstairs. Claustrophobic. 6 remaining board members sat around a cherry-wood table looking like they'd aged 10 years in 2 hours. Lucera sat across from them. No cleaning cart. No yellow cloth. Just her and Serena and the weight of decisions that would define the rest of her life. The interim chairman, Blake Winters from Dallas, cleared his throat. Old money. Old power. The kind of man who'd never cleaned anything himself in 70 years of living. Ms. Vale, he began. What happened today was unprecedented. Shocking. And deeply damaging to this company's reputation. Lucera said nothing. Blake continued. We want to make things right. Compensate you for your assistance. Ensure your future is secure. He slid a document across the table. Single page. Clean font. Numbers that made Lucera's vision blur. $2 million. This is a settlement offer, Blake said. In exchange for your silence regarding today's events. You sign a comprehensive NDA. You don't speak to media. You don't testify unless subpoenaed. You walk away whole. Serena leaned forward. That's significantly less than what her testimony is worth in a civil suit against the company. Blake smiled thinly. It's also significantly more than she'd see after years of litigation that we can afford and she cannot. Lucera stared at the number. $2 million. Her mother's medical bills paid in full. A real apartment. Citizenship lawyers who actually returned phone calls. Security she'd never imagined. All she had to do was stay silent. There's more, Blake said. He slid another document. We're also prepared to offer you a position. Compliance consultant. 6-figure salary. Benefits. Stock options. The woman from Los Angeles, Imani Cross, spoke up. You'd be helping us rebuild. Ensuring nothing like Victor's scheme ever happens again. It sounded perfect. Too perfect. Lucera looked at Serena. The lawyer's face stayed neutral but her eyes said everything. This is a trap. What happens to the criminal case? Lucera asked. Blake shifted in his seat. That proceeds independently. But without your cooperation, prosecutors have a weaker case. Victor can afford excellent lawyers. He might walk. There it was. The real offer. Take the money. Take the job. Let Victor Halrich slip through the cracks the way powerful men always did. Lucera's father died because he chose truth over survival. She watched her mother deteriorate because justice didn't pay bills. She spent 8 years invisible because speaking up meant risking everything. And now they wanted her to choose silence again. I need time, Lucera said. Blake's smile tightened. We need an answer today. This offer expires at midnight. Pressure. Classic negotiation tactic. Create urgency. Force mistakes. Serena stood abruptly. My client will respond when she's ready. Not before. They left the conference room. Took the elevator down to the lobby. Walked out into the Manhattan afternoon where reporters still swarmed like locusts. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. Ms. Vale. Did you know Victor Halrich was committing fraud? How does it feel to bring down a billionaire? What's next for you? Security guards formed a wall. Pushed the media back. Serena guided Lucera toward a black car idling at the curb. Inside the vehicle, silence felt like drowning. $2 million, Lucera whispered. Blood money, Serena replied. They're not paying you for helping. They're paying you to protect themselves. But my mother will still be alive if you testify, Serena said firmly. And you'll be able to look her in the eye knowing you did the right thing. Lucera's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Ms. Vale. The voice was smooth. Professional. My name is James Cartwright. I represent Victor Halricks. Lucera's blood went cold. Mr. Halricks wanted me to convey a message, the lawyer continued. He understands you're in a difficult position. He's prepared to make a personal offer. $5 million. Deposited in an offshore account. Untraceable. Tax-free. In exchange for recanting your testimony. Serena grabbed the phone. Put it on speaker. This conversation is being recorded, Serena said. And what you just proposed is witness tampering. The line went dead. Lucera stared at her hands. They shook so badly she had to clench them into fists. $5 million. From the man who destroyed her father. The man who would walk free if she took it. The car pulled up to her apartment building in Queens. Peeling paint. Cracked sidewalk. Home. Lucera got out. Climbed 3 flights of stairs. Opened the door to her mother sleeping peacefully in the bedroom. Machines beeped steady rhythms. Medical bills stacked on the kitchen counter. Eviction notice still taped to the inside of the door. She sat on the couch and cried for the first time in 8 years. Not from sadness. From exhaustion. From the crushing weight of knowing that doing the right thing might cost her everything she'd fought to protect. Her phone buzzed again. Text from an unknown number. Choose wisely. Accidents happen to people who make enemies. When doing the right thing could destroy you, what do you choose? The courthouse steps felt like walking toward execution. Lucera wore a borrowed suit. Navy blue. Too big in the shoulders. Serena walked beside her. Marcus Chen and 2 other agents formed a protective wall around them. Media swarmed like hornets. Cameras. Microphones. Shouted questions that blurred into white noise. Federal Court. Southern District of New York. The building loomed like a concrete fortress designed to intimidate everyone who entered. Victor's trial wouldn't start for months. But today was the preliminary hearing. Evidence presentation. Testimony that would determine whether the case moved forward or collapsed. Inside the courtroom, Victor sat at the defense table looking smaller than he had in the boardroom. Orange jumpsuit. Handcuffs. 2 lawyers flanking him like bodyguards. His eyes found Lucera. Cold. Empty. Promising violence the law couldn't prevent. The judge entered. Honorable Patricia Huang. 50 years on the bench. Reputation for crushing corruption with the same enthusiasm most people reserved for crushing insects. Mr. Halricks, Judge Huang said. You're charged with 17 counts of fraud and conspiracy. How do you plead? Victor's lead attorney stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. Noted. Judge Huang turned toward the prosecution. Counselor, present your evidence. Marcus Chen approached the bench. Placed a tablet displaying the translated document on the evidence table. Your Honor, the government's case rests on financial records, digital communications, and expert testimony from Ms. Lucera Vale, who translated documents revealing the defendant's criminal enterprise. Victor's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Ms. Vale is not a certified translator. Her methodology is unverified. This evidence should be excluded. Judge Huang raised an eyebrow. Counselor, approach. Both lawyers huddled at the bench. Whispered arguments Lucera couldn't hear. Her heart hammered so loud she thought everyone could hear it. The judge waved them back. I'll allow preliminary testimony, Judge Huang said. Ms. Vale, please take the stand. Lucera stood on shaking legs. Walked to the witness box. Placed her hand on the Bible. Swore to tell the truth. The whole truth. Nothing but the truth. Marcus Chen smiled gently. Ms. Vale, Can you explain how you were able to translate the document in question? Lucera took a breath. My father, Dakari Vale, was a cryptolinguist. He taught me to read layered corporate language designed to hide illegal activity. And the device you used? The jade pen. He designed it to decode syntax patterns and reveal hidden meanings in foreign legal documents. Victor's lawyer stood again. Your Honor, this sounds like science fiction. We request independent verification of this device's capabilities. Judge Huang nodded. Granted. The court will appoint forensic linguistic experts to examine the methodology. Marcus continued. Ms. Vale, can you tell the court what you discovered in the documents? Lucera looked directly at Victor. A plan to steal $40 billion from Sterling Meridian investors through offshore shell companies while making it look like legitimate business transactions. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled notes. Spectators gasped. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Victor's lawyer approached the witness stand. Circled like a shark. Ms. Vale, isn't it true you were employed as a maid at Sterling Meridian? Yes. Tell the court what you discovered in the documents. Lucera looked directly at Victor. A plan to steal $40 billion from Sterling Meridian investors through offshore shell companies while making it look like legitimate business transactions. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled notes. Spectators gasped. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Victor's lawyer approached the witness stand. Circled like a shark. Ms. Vale, isn't it true you were employed as a maid at Sterling Meridian? Yes. No formal education in finance or law. Correct. No certification in translation services. No. The lawyer smiled. So you expect this court to believe that a cleaning woman with no credentials somehow decoded complex international fraud that evaded detection by dozens of executives with Harvard MBAs and decades of experience? Lucera met his eyes without flinching. I expect this court to believe evidence, she said. The documents speak for themselves. My credentials don't change what's written in them. The lawyer's smile faltered. Marcus stood. Your Honor, we have corroborating evidence. Bank records matching the accounts Ms. Vale identified. Email metadata confirming Mr. Howrick's authored communications referenced in the documents. Testimony from 3 whistleblowers inside Sterling Meridian who were too afraid to come forward until Ms. Vale's translation gave them cover. Judge Huang studied the evidence. Long minutes stretched like hours. Finally she spoke. This court finds sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Bail is revoked. Mr. Howricks will remain in custody pending trial date. Victor's face went purple. He lunged toward the witness stand. Guards grabbed him. Wrestled him back. You're dead, he screamed at Lucera. You hear me? Dead. Judge Huang banged her gavel hard enough to crack wood. Mr. Howricks, another outburst like that and I'll add intimidation charges. Bailiffs, remove the defendant. They dragged Victor from the courtroom. His screams echoed down the hallway. His lawyers scrambled after him looking like men watching their careers implode in real time. Lucera sat in the witness box trembling. Not from fear. From the overwhelming weight of watching a billionaire dragged away in handcuffs because she refused to stay silent. Marcus helped her down. You did great, he said quietly. Outside the courthouse, news crews mobbed them. Headlines would scream across every financial network by sunset. Sterling Meridian stock would crash harder. Investors would file lawsuits. The SEC would launch investigations. And Lucera Vale, the maid nobody saw, would become the woman everyone remembered. But in that moment, all she could think about was her father. Vindicated. Finally. What does justice feel like when it costs everything to achieve it? The board met one final time in the small conference room where they tried to buy Lucera's silence. Blake Winters looked 10 years older. Imani Cross stared at her phone like it held answers to questions nobody was asking. The remaining executives sat in silence, heavy as lead. Serena entered first. Lucera followed. No cleaning uniform. No cart. Just a woman who'd burned down a corrupt empire and walked through the ashes. Blake cleared his throat. Ms. Vale. Your testimony was compelling. The board has voted. He slid a new document across the table. We're offering you a permanent position. Chief Compliance Officer. 200,000 annual salary. Full benefits. Stock options. You'd oversee all corporate governance and ensure Sterling Meridian rebuilds ethically. Lucera stared at the paper. Chief Compliance Officer. Corner office. Respect. Power she'd never imagined. Everything she'd never had. Imani spoke up. You'd be saving this company. Hundreds of employees depend on Sterling Meridian surviving. You could make sure Victor's crimes never happen again. It was a good offer. A smart offer. The kind of opportunity people spent lifetimes chasing. Lucera picked up the document. Read every word carefully. Then she set it down. No, she said. Blake blinked. I'm sorry. I said no. Serena smiled slightly. She'd known this was coming. Ms. Vale, Blake said slowly. This is a remarkable opportunity. Financial security. Career advancement. The chance to do meaningful work. I don't want power, Lucera replied. Her voice stayed calm. Final. I want dignity. You'd have both, Imani insisted. No, Lucera stood. I'd have a title that comes from a company built on my father's grave. I'd spend every day in offices where people laughed at me for being poor. I'd owe you something I refuse to owe anyone. Blake's jaw tightened. What do you want then? I want you to honor my father's work. Publicly. I want his name on the compliance reforms you implement. I want his research published. I want the world to know Dakari Vale was right and the men who destroyed him were wrong. Silence. And I want the 2 million you offered as silence money, Lucera continued. Not as a settlement. As compensation for 8 years of labor you underpaid and recognition you withheld. I earned every dollar cleaning your floors while you committed crimes above my head. Blake's face flushed. That's extortion. That's justice, Serena corrected. My client is entitled to compensation for labor performed in a hostile work environment under an employer engaged in criminal enterprise. 2 million is generous. We could ask for 20. The board members exchanged glances. Calculations happening behind tired eyes. Legal exposure. PR nightmares. Cost-benefit analysis. Finally Blake nodded. Done. Papers were signed. Accounts were transferred. Within 3 hours, Lucera Vale had more money in her name than her parents had earned in their entire lives combined. She walked out of Sterling Meridian Tower for the last time. Serena beside her. Marcus Chen waiting at the curb. What's next? Marcus asked. Lucera looked up at the building. 49 floors of glass and steel and broken promises. I'm going home, she said. To my mother. To tell her we're safe. That we survived. That the men who tried to bury us failed. And after that? Serena pressed. Lucera smiled. Small. Genuine. Free. Whatever I want. Can you walk away from power when you finally earned the right to claim it? 6 months later, Lucera stood in a small community center in Queens. Folding chairs filled the room. Immigrants. Cleaners. Day laborers. People who worked invisible jobs for invisible wages. She taught translation services. Free classes twice a week. using her father's techniques to help people decode legal documents, employment contracts, immigration paperwork written to confuse and control. Her mother sat in the front row. Healthy. Smiling. Dialysis paid for. Medical bills cleared. An apartment with heat and working plumbing and neighbors who knew their names. Victor Halrix was convicted on 14 counts. 30 years in federal prison. No parole. His fortune seized. His empire dismantled. Derek Whale turned state's evidence. Got 15 years. Became a cautionary tale about loyalty to corrupt men. Sterling Meridian reorganized under new leadership. Implemented the Dakari Vale compliance framework. Published his research. Made his name synonymous with corporate integrity instead of suspicious death. The jade pen sat in a museum now. Smithsonian. Part of an exhibit on technological innovation in financial transparency. But Lucera didn't need it anymore. She'd learned what her father really taught her. Not how to translate languages. How to translate truth into action. Silence into speech. Invisibility into undeniable presence. After class, a young woman approached. Haitian accent. Nervous hands. Cleaning uniform under her coat. Ms. Vale, she whispered. I found something at my job. Documents. I think they're hiding money. But I don't know what to do. Lucera smiled. Handed her a card with the FBI Financial Crimes Hotline. You call this number, she said. You tell them what you saw. You don't stay silent. But I could lose my job. My visa. Everything. I know, Lucera said gently. Believe me, I know. But staying silent costs more than speaking up. It costs your soul. The woman nodded. Pocketed the card. Left with her shoulders a little straighter. Lucera packed her materials. Walked home through Queen streets that felt different now. Not safer. Not easier. Just hers. Her phone buzzed. Text from Serena. Another company wants to hire you as consultant. Tech firm in San Francisco. 7 figures. Lucera deleted the message. She'd found something more valuable than money or power or recognition. She'd found the ability to look her reflection in the eye and recognize the person staring back. Someone her father would be proud of. Someone her mother didn't have to worry about. Someone who proved that the quietest person in the room could shake the foundations of empires. That night, Lucera sat on her small balcony overlooking the neighborhood. City lights stretched toward horizons she'd never imagined reaching. She thought about Victor Halrix in his prison cell. About executives who'd laughed at her cleaning their boardrooms. About every person who'd looked through her like she didn't exist. They knew her name now. Not because she demanded it. Because she earned it. One translated document. One refusal to stay silent. One decision to choose truth over survival. The maid who translated a billionaire's lies into his downfall. The woman who proved that power isn't given. It's taken. By people brave enough to speak when silence is safer. And somewhere in the darkness, her father's voice whispered the words he'd said before everything ended. Don't let them kill you. She hadn't. She'd done something better. She'd lived. Fully. Freely. Fearlessly. And that was the greatest victory of all. If you loved this story, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications because we have more incredible true stories coming your way that will inspire you, challenge you, and remind you that one person can change everything. Drop a comment telling us what you thought and where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive. See you in the next one.